Hello all and welcome back to another wonderful video. Today I am here in Ponytown, that's right, that little pony game where you can build islands, and I'm on a very hideous, ugly looking island because today I'm going to be giving you guys 5 tips on how you can improve your building skills. That's right, we're going to go from something that looks ugly like this to something that looks way better and believable. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe because I make videos like this all the time. I make wish lists, I make funny random Ponytown videos, I do all that sort of stuff, and with My Little Pony Generation 5 coming out, I'm going to be making lots of videos on that. But with that out of the way, let's get ahead of ourselves and start with number 1 on the list, which is blank spaces are pretty ugly. Like blank spaces in Ponytown are pretty horrible. In fact, it's probably a crime to have empty spaces. So I'm going to teach you all how you can improve empty spaces. So, starting with the exterior, if you're doing anything outside like this, there's an ugly empty space right here. We can very easily improve that by first eating our banana, and then opening up our build menu with a hammer and going between the nature tab, the flowers tab, and the mushrooms tab. That's right, you're going to be putting some foliage out here. Don't just go to the nature tab, scroll over to the trees, and just spam a bunch of trees and call it good enough. You can make it way exceptionally better if you actually, use things that you probably wouldn't think about using. Something like maybe these small blueberry bushes. Maybe we want to put that like on this tree or this tree or something like that. And then that tree looks a little bit better than it did before. But we can of course use the flowers tab and the mushrooms tab, which is something I don't see enough people doing. But if we open up the flowers tab and just grab some random plants like this, we can put a tulip here. We can change the color of it, by the way, by pressing space or hitting this little icon here. And then we can put some of those, maybe a few of these crocus plant things. I don't know how they're pronounced. Just make sure you don't spam them all over the place and completely randomly. You can maybe sometimes get away with spamming them somewhat randomly, but you need to make sure that you don't just spam them randomly because they will end up stacking on top of each other in weird ways, and no one's gonna like that. So let's go ahead and put a few more of these down, and you can see how in just a matter of a few minutes we have something that looks way better than what it did before. Just with a few things that we did here, this looks way better than it did before. Obviously, we can spend 10 minutes on this, 5 minutes on this, even 3 minutes on this, and it will look way better than this. But for the sake of the tutorial, let's go ahead and stop there and move on to the second thing. That's right, the second thing. And that second thing is letting your map tell a story. Now, you may not understand what I mean by this right away, but I'm going to teach you guys. I'm going to teach you what that means. So if we go over here to this very ugly building, which we're going to change as the tutorial goes on, we can go up to this little corner right here, and we can use these racks to tell a story. Now, that story is up to you. It's up to your interpretation or whatever like that. And this is obviously only one way to do it. There's probably many more ways to do it other than I'm going to explain in this tutorial. But if we open up our build menu again and leave the flowers tab, go to food and storage, we can actually use this empty rack to tell a story. If we grab, like, let's say a banana, let's place that down right here, maybe a mango, place a couple of those down or something like that, maybe another banana or two. Can you flip the banana? Yes, you can. You can flip the banana, just place a couple of those down, maybe even a lemon, I don't know. And put a few of these down, and just by placing a handful of random fruits and stuff like that next to this shelf, it looks like they're trying to stock. It looks like they're stocking their shelves and stuff like that. For example, if we want to match this shelf, we can even go as far as going to nature and then going all the way to like the coconuts or whatever, and then putting a couple of those even if we wanted to. Just like that, it looks like we're trying to stock it with coconuts and bananas and things like that because that's what this one is. So now your thing looks way better than it did before. You don't just have an empty rack, you have an empty rack that's telling a story. Perhaps the person that lives here is trying to stock their shelves. Maybe they're unstocking the shelves, maybe they're removing things from it because they're in a rush. Maybe it's some kind of apocalypse and they have to quickly come up here, take whatever fruit they can, and they've spilt some of it on their way out. All kinds of stories can be told simply by just scattering fruit in front of an empty rack. That is my second tip for you guys, is to use, items and stuff like that. Make your map tell a story, because if you do that, it's going to look more lived in. And something else, we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. As you noticed, this room is rather empty, so we can very easily fix that. We can turn this area up here into like a storage area or something like that to make it even more like we're stocking and stuff like that. So it's like more of a storage area. We can put a couple of these down like this, maybe even a barrel. Boom. that automatically looks way more lived in. And my next tip here for you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now. Avoid straight lines. Avoid straight lines. Straight lines are ugly. Look at this path. It goes perfectly straight. That's horrible. Let's zoom out. Look at this. There's perfectly straight edges all the way around this island. It's almost perfectly square. That's horrible. We even have like a weird squarish river here. That looks ugly. That's not normal. That's not natural. That's not how natural things are. And if you've ever looked at a house, unless you live in like a trailer or something like that, like I do, they're usually not square. So something we can immediately improve about this interior here is we can just kind of change this shape. And just by doing this simple little thing, not only do we have, you know, less empty space, but it now has a more interesting shape. It's not perfectly square. We don't want perfectly square, perfectly straight things. But more interestingly, with these paths, something that you can do and something that I absolutely love doing is making my paths sort of twist and turn and curve and stuff like that. So if we remove a good chunk of this path real quick, we can very easily kind of show you what I mean by this. By the way, an easy way to get like curves in Ponytown is to do the square method. So basically 1, 2, and then 4, and then just place that, and then you get really used to this really easily and really fast. But the more you do this, the easier it'll get for you, and the more you know, quick curves you'll be able to make and stuff like that. So we can easily twist around both these trees just like that, and then get back to our original little point here right there. And then of course we have a little bit of straightness over here, so we can just kind of move this like this, maybe add, you know, that right there, grab this, and just put a few random tiles there to kind of break up the straightness of it and everything like that. Maybe we can even do that on this end right here where it kind of connects to the house. And then boom, just like that, we have something that isn't perfectly straight. And we can even go as far as creating, you know, double paths. So now when you go down here, you can choose to go around this way or go around this way. And of course we have an empty ugly space right here again, so we can of course fill that out and make it look more lovely. Now, the only real exception for straight lines is really whenever you're doing something like a dock, because a dock would be something that is artificial. So if I wanted to put a dock right here, I could do that and it would look normal as long as I, you know, made it look more like a dock instead of just this, because just this by itself obviously looks ugly. We would obviously want to improve that. I want to tell you guys how you can kind of improve these little straight edges. Again, just simply do 1, up 1, and then over, and then you have 4, and you place that. You can go perfectly diagonally and it'll do the exact same thing. So you place 1, go diagonally, it'll place 4, just do that. And then just like that, you immediately have something that looks way less straight. Now obviously we have some repeating patterns here. We have up, down, and it kind of repeats itself over and over and over again. You don't want to do that. You don't want something that just continuously goes the same shape over and over and over again, because that also looks very unnatural. So we can kind of fix that by placing just 1 or 2 here and there and kind of filling this out to kind of make it look a little bit less, you know, the same shape over and over and over again. But as you can see, we went from a very ugly flat shape on this edge to something that looks nice, and we even ended up with a little pond here, which looks lovely as well. So again, same thing applies if you want to improve your ponds, your rivers, whatever like that. Just kind of do that same shape, mix your water with your grass or whatever other tiles you're using, and then you can get something that looks way more natural. Don't be afraid of tiny little little paths like this whenever you're doing stuff with water, because that looks fine by itself as well. But again, just by placing like, what was that, like 3 or 4 tiles, half of this little river right here already looks way more natural. Of course, we don't want perfect squares, but we can fix that by simply doing a couple things like that, and again, it just looks much better. So that's my next tip for you, is an easy way to avoid straight lines. Simply place some more tiles and avoid those straight lines, because straight lines are ugly and they're not natural. So my next tip is this right here. That's right, this tree is my next tip. As you can see, if we zoom in closely, you can see how this bush is indeed underneath the tree, which makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever. So you can see that this tree is obviously clipping with this bush in a weird way, and no one likes that. No one likes weird, awkward clipping. Well, here's another tip for you, and this is something that everyone should do. In fact, it's something that game devs do themselves. All you have to do is go through your tools here, all your objects and stuff like that, and find something to hide your clipping with. So, for example, this is a bush. bush, maybe if I put another small bush about right here, boom, that clipping is now hidden. You'll never know that that clipping was there, and it allows me to bring this bush much closer to the tree, because if I didn't do this, I would have to move this bush up further, and then it's no longer clipping with it, and I want that really close to the tree. I want that like hugging the tree. So if I do that, I can add this. Maybe I don't want to use the small bush, maybe I want to use a rock. Boom, we put a rock there, something like that. Maybe we can even use a small rock or two if we get just the right rock or just the right shape or something like that. Boom, rocks. Anything that you can come up with, maybe even some flowers, maybe even leaf piles, because that would look natural because it's a tree directly on top of it. Anything, hide clipping. Now, of course, you can extend this out towards things inside your house, and there's much more better examples than just the bush thing that I just showed you. But for the sake of this, let's just stick with the bush thing and say you can easily hide clipping with something like a rock or something. If you're doing something inside, then make sure to hide it with something that is an interior object and not something that's an exterior object. So maybe like a house plant, maybe a lantern, something like that. Maybe I'm hiding a clipping issue. You have no idea. No one knows. This last tip is variety. Variety, variety, variety. Variety is extremely important whenever you're building a house, whenever you're building an island, whenever you're building anything, whenever you're making anything. Variety is important. As you saw here earlier, I mixed different flowers and different stuff like that to get this little empty space looking much better. So obviously I could have just went the easy route and grabbed a handful of dandelions and just put just dandelions, but that wouldn't have looked as good as mixing some weeds and daisies and everything else like that. It just looks much better mixing everything together and sort of getting it all in, you know, a variety, so to speak. This is even more true whenever you're building something that's interior based, whenever you're building something inside a house. As you can see, we have red, 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 red. It's all the same color wood. We don't have that, you know, very good variety in the walls either. The walls you can usually get away with, but sometimes it'll make sense to sort of stripe them with another wall or do some kind of cool thing or something, but that's completely up to you. Point is, we can easily fix these things. We can grab ourselves a brush here. We can change the color of some of these things and make them do blue, because red and blue go good together, I imagine. So you can do that. You can grab your shovel, get some dark wood, mix it with light wood. Maybe you just want to stripe it. You can do something as simple as just striping it, and even just that by itself makes this look way better than it did before. You know, this is a bedroom here. Maybe we want the bedroom to be carpeted, so maybe we want to do something like a yellow or green or purple carpet or something like that in here. Maybe we have improved this area quite a bit. This is a lot of blue, so maybe you would want to change that. I don't know. It's really hard. It's really, this is the part where it's sort of really up to you to decide if it's enough variety for you and stuff. But personally, I love this. This is great. Just simply striping it, mixing up different, you know, tiles and stuff like that is going to give you way more variety than you otherwise would have, and that is my last tip for you guys. So as you can see, I could spend hours on this, making this even better, but that little bit of space, our path is way better. This ugly empty space is much better. Some of our edges are much better because they're not perfectly square anymore. Our house is much better because it has more variety inside. It's not a ugly square shape, and it has something that makes it feel more lived in, hence the fruits on the ground. So those are my tips for you guys. If you have any tips yourselves that you want to share, let me know in the comments below, because I will include them in a future video perhaps. And yeah, that does it for the video. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please do like, subscribe, share, do all of those wonderful things like that, because when you do those wonderful things, you get access to wonderful content such as this. But that's not all you get. No, it's not all you get. You also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.